Welcome to Perspectives On, where we're giving the world a voice. We are a faith-based social justice forum where individuals give their perspectives on various topics. It's an opportunity to express their viewpoint, their stance, and their angle on justice issues affecting the community and globally. Each episode features guests presenting their perspective on things like climate change, the church, urban farming, and food insecurity, all through a unique faith lens. Come check us out. Give us your perspective. Welcome to Perspectives on Social Justice, where we're giving the world a voice. I am Lyra Lane White, your host. And in keeping with our commitment as a faith-based organization and our 2021 focus on the church and its existence during COVID-19, we wanted to take a pause to focus on how communities of faith are moving through this pandemic. How well has the church adjusted to maintain relevance during this country's morality test? And are congregations meeting the spiritual needs of America's multitude? I also asked the question that can church leaders answer the hard questions concerning matters related to race, unemployment, disparity in the disparities in the educational and also the controversies surrounding the availability of the COVID-19 vaccine. It is the opinion of this professional ministry that pastors and church leaders are amidst a reckoning relative to the way they are conducting the business of the church, a reckoning to the way they have trained and should be held accountable for their response or lack of response to the systemic and structural injustice we have witnessed. The civil rights era existed during a time where we had an entirely different set of dynamics. For the first time in the history of this country, there is a national consensus of moral outrage of some of the things that have been happening. And with that outrage, there has sparked a momentum for change within American culture, among people of color, and all cultures, not just in America, but really around the world. And that rage is being fueled by that same consensus about where are we morally as a country. The church universally has also had to realign its operating platform by going virtual. And in some cases, they've had to close up altogether. Well, what we have nowadays is we have a multitude of hybrid approaches to worship. Some are worshiping business as usual, allowing the congregations to come back into their sanctuary. Some are in the midst of still doing virtual and trying their best to meet the spiritual needs. But a lot of churches and a lot of organizations have not responded verbally, have not responded out to some of the hot topics. And then we do have some churches that have sparked a new beginning, a new opening. There's some pastors that have dared to stand out and step out and really create and open up the doors of new churches and new ministries, embracing new ways of doing things. And so on tonight, we're going to talk to one such pastor and his wife, who's also a co-pastor, who has dared to step out and carry the banner of faith and start their own ministry. So we have the Reverend Dr. George Miller and his wife, Reverend Sherry Miller. I'm not sure if it's Reverend yet. I guess I should have found that out before time, but I'm going to claim it for you.
It's coming.
Because it is a partnership, and no doubt that behind this great ministry, there has to be a great woman. Amen, somebody. There it is. There it is. I'm going to let them tell you a little bit about their ministry, and they've got some exciting things coming up. So y'all go ahead and Dr. Miller, Reverend Sherry, share with our viewing audience, who you are and what you're doing.
Sure. Well, first, let me say, Dr. White, thank you for having us on. Grace to you and your viewing audience. It is an honor to be on this wonderful broadcast and to be a part of this conversation. Again, you've given our names, George and Sherry Miller. We are here in the great city of Augusta, Georgia. Right outside of Augusta is where we live. And God is shining his grace, shining his smile on the city of Augusta. And we love this wonderful city. We're originally from Washington, D.C. We're D.C. babies. And we have known each other since we were
12 and 13.
Preteens.
Wow.
We met in church.
We met in church.
Get out.
Yeah.
Metropolitan Baptist Church, Reverend Dr. H. Beecher Hicks.
That was our pastor.
He was our pastor.
Absolutely. And so we have been knowing each other for a number of years. We are been married a long time now, 16 years almost. We're the parents of 5 boys. We have locked them out. So if you hear
banging on the door,
it's live TV, y'all. This is live TV. And
they're
so
fine.
That's what that is going to be about. Okay. And I've been blessed now for the last almost 6 years to be the pastor of the Elam Baptist Church of Augusta, Georgia, a church. DC in the house. I see you. A church. Amen.
DC in the house.
A church that will be 135 years old on this coming May. Prior to that, I served 8 years at the Tabernacle Baptist Church of Augusta, Georgia, under our friend and brother, Reverend Dr. Charles Goodman. And then I pastored a few years in Atlanta. So we have a lot of experience in ministry. My wife has walked this journey with me during ministry. And recently, God sort of laid upon our hearts. He gave us a command, a vision, and an opportunity, catch this now, to plant a church in a neighboring county here in the Augusta area. This whole area is known as the CSRA. And so that's where we are now. We are literally in the throes of planting a ministry, birthing a ministry in a pandemic.
Yes.
Now, what makes this so strange is we're still pastoring the Elam Baptist Church.
Yes.
There are no issues there. There are no, we're still there loving that community. We love those people. We plan to be there as long as they will have us.
That's right.
Amen. But God gave us this command to do something a little bit different. This is not a satellite church. This is actually a separate church that shares a name, shares similar visions, shares pastoral leadership, but doing work in another part of our area. And it's happening during a pandemic where we are largely virtual, right? Planning our re-entrance into the sanctuaries, many pastors are. And navigating through those dynamics has been challenging. Every day presents something new. Every day presents a different challenge, a different question that we have to answer and wrestle with. But it's been fun. It's been challenging. But we believe God is in it.
And we're already starting to see the fruits.
Absolutely.
Which is why we know that we're doing what God has called us to do.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm excited for you. I've been watching you on Facebook and other places, being excited about starting your ministry. And it's an exciting thing when you stepping out on faith and doing it. And you're doing it together, and you're doing it as a family with 5 boys. Wow. Basketball team. We're putting them to work. They could be being good examples to those young men. But, in the midst of doing this in a pandemic, right? And the church has already seen enough challenges in terms of trying to reach the unchurched, right? And so this pandemic, I feel like, has kind of made it even harder because the doors of the church are not literally open. Okay. Correct. And I'm interested in knowing what your perspective is on how to reach those, because there is a lot of data out that talks about how the unchurched, the persons who weren't in church originally, and there's a lack of interest, right? But you guys have said we're going to start a new ministry. So what's your perspective on how to reach those that are not interested and church activities? Have y'all come up with a strategy for that?
Well, here's what I will say. I will say, to a large degree, God had already been blessing our ministry as it relates to reaching young people.
Okay.
We're young, 41.
Right.
How are you 41? Right?
I'm 41.
You're 41. Yeah.
And young families.
Young families, young people. And so our perspective on that is a little different because, again, you can get lost in the data and you can get spooked by the data.
Yeah.
And the data you have given, the figures, a lot of what we've seen them too. And when I go travel other churches and minister in other places, certainly the eye test, I see exactly what you're talking about.
Right.
But our ministry has been blessed down through the years to be able to attract young families, young people. And so we've been blessed to be able to do that. And one of the ways we do that is by, number one, respecting the shoulders and the traditions upon which we stand.
Right.
But knowing, okay, it's a new day, God's doing new things. And even in this pandemic, the physical doors of the church are closed, but the doors have been blown off the hinges spiritually.
I like that.
Yeah, that it's wide open.
It is.
It's totally wide open. And none of us have lived through a pandemic before.
Right.
Right.
Pastored.
That's true. We have
pastored through a pandemic before. I'm a teacher. No one's taught through a pandemic before. So I maintain, as creative as I have to be in that classroom and reach my students, that I had to reach and be energized and be passionate and create relationships with them when I couldn't see them face to face, is the same thing that we have to do planting this church.
Yeah. And we fail. Listen, I tell everybody, I was on, again, we do a midweek check-in call every Wednesday at 12 noon with the members and the larger congregation community.
That's a good strategy. I haven't heard anybody talk about doing that. You said a weekly check-in call?
Every Wednesday at 12 noon, middle part of the month of the week, middle part of the day, we do what we call the midweek check-in, where you can either video in so we can see your face, or call in for our older members who are not getting on, as they would say, that book face and all that kind of stuff. So we have multiple ways for you to call in, and I do a devotion with them. And if I'm in Bible study season, I do a snippet of the Bible study on the call, and we'll do praise reports, prayer requests, and we'll just catch up with one another.
Right.
And I was telling them this past Wednesday, and I've said it many times before, I feel like a failure in this season as a pastor.
Why is that?
Because no matter what I do, no one else is saying this. This is me, my own self-appraisal.
Right.
I don't feel like it's enough because the season and the times are so difficult and challenging and unpredictable, and the needs are so great that there are times where I feel like I'm insufficient as a pastor to be able to address all those needs and all those challenges. Now, I know I'm not Jesus. I get it. I understand. But that's just how I feel. So, so because I feel that way, on the other side of that coin, it gives me the license to try. If I'm gonna fail, I will just go all out. Just try it and see what happens. We're in a pandemic. Let's see what works. The doors are blown off. Let's see what works.
Right.
Let's see what bait attracts different types of fish.
Exactly.
The same bait doesn't get all fish.
Right.
Try some new stuff. And if it don't work, throw it away and try something different.
Well, I think that's the nature of ministry.
Yeah.
And we got a Facebook, and if that's who I think it is, Reverend, I wish you would tell Facebook to show your name. And I think that's one of our seasoned pastors from Washington, D.C., as a matter of fact.
Okay.
And
I might know him.
We might know him.
It's a female, but she's really, but it never really feels like enough. And really, because we are, we've got the wounded healers syndrome, we've got all kinds of things going on that's pulling us in a whole lot of different directions. We never feel like we're we're enough. And I haven't sat in the big chair, the big pastor's chair, in a long time, but I can imagine that it's pretty daunting.
Well, I'll give you an example. This week we've had 2 deaths in our congregation. One was a deacon who passed a few days ago, and then we have people in the hospitals and that kind of stuff. And the COVID restrictions sort of hinders your ability to go to homes and to go to hospitals. So you don't feel like one of our church mothers was rushed to the hospital recently, 2 days ago. Right. And you know, I wanted to go down there and be with her and pray with her, but I couldn't. And it makes you feel even more of a failure than you would normally feel. So I called her today. I called her and I was with her on the phone, but still, it's just a challenging season. But it's a season to try new things, do new things.
Well, speaking of new things, so would you say, okay, so tell me, would you say that, and I know you do your Wednesday check-in, right? And I'm assuming, and I know you do the Sunday worship, right? We talked about that before we went live. Have you noticed a difference in the level of attendance? Are you able to measure your attendance? And have you been able to tell a difference in your level of attendance between pre-pandemic and now? What's your...
Yeah, Dr. White, you know, I'm a trained MBA business guy, so all those analytics and stuff, I'm kind of a geek when it comes to that kind of stuff. And so we do follow that. And yeah, I've noticed trends. Where we broadcast on Sunday mornings. Right. And our strategy was, okay, we actually present a broadcast. So it's recorded, it's edited, it's shot up into the cloud, and it's shot back down to about 4 or 5 different channels. So we stream.
Oh, really?
Yes.
We stream on YouTube, Roku. We have
our own Roku channel.
We have our own Roku channel. We have our Elam Everywhere app. We have our actual Facebook Live, and we have our church website.
Oh, wow.
So
it
streams 5 different ways.
What's that? What's your church's website? So just in case somebody wants to go.
Well, so the mother church, Elam Augusta, is www.elamaugusta.org. The Elam Everywhere website is www.elameverywhere.org.
So that's www.elamaugusta.org.
Yep.
And Elam Everywhere.org.
Okay. Correct.
All right.
So then you can download our Elam Everywhere app, available in your Apple and Google Play stores.
Okay.
That's sort of the electronic entrance into Elam. That's what we're going to use as part of our Elam online campus in the months to come. So we stream a number of different ways. And here's what we discovered. We discovered it was important. At first, there was some question about why we streaming so many different platforms. Again, different fate. You need different bait for different fish, right? So to catch different fish. So what I discovered is early in the pandemic, I mean, live stream was the best thing going.
Right.
Best thing going. Folk weren't going back to church. The church was going to, you know, it was all going to be different, right?
Right.
And in some ways, in some senses, that's true. We believe that to be true. This is going to be with us from now on.
Right.
But when we started this, no one expected to be out of the sanctuaries of our churches for a year.
Right.
When that first happened, some of us were like, okay, we'll be out for a month, maybe 2, and then we'll come on back. And so as this thing has gone on for a year now, and possibly longer, what we've noticed is a desire to return to sanctuaries, right? And so, and there has been sort of a fatigue with online broadcasting. It just has. There's a smorgasbord of options. I told my folks this past Sunday, y'all turn it on the Elam Want to Grow on broadcast and stay right there.
Stay there.
Don't channel surf. Don't be going all in. Stay right here. I was joking, but I was serious.
Right. So did you see? So since you are tracking your attendance, so across these various channels, did you notice? So are you saying that there has been a decline in attendance since the beginning of the pandemic? And
yes, I think there has been a slight decline. I think there's more viewership because the services are able to be archived and are up. So there's an increase in viewership. But then the question becomes, you really get into the data, and how long are people actually viewing the broadcast.
That's
Right.
right. That's right. I know.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
I can go into the data and see an IP address from Washington, D.C., somebody in D.C. we know watching,
Right.
but they're only on for a minute and 30 seconds.
That's right. That's it. That's it. Yeah.
So that's the question number one. And then
That's the sign of the fatigue also.
that's the sign of the fatigue.
Yeah.
That lets us know that people are wanting to come back.
Right.
There's a wanting to come back to in-person services and in-person interaction.
Right.
And I think people are just tired of just just tired of the computer and tired of holding the phone. I think, that's the fatigue. They want to.
It doesn't. Something gets lost in the translation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's part of that. But then the other part of that is I have noticed, this is the strange part, an increase in elderly senior citizens watching.
Right.
And here's where the multiple ways of streaming has become, I think, beneficial. Because if you look at our Facebook Live, you would think that's the only viewership we have, but it's not.
It's not.
We got folk who are on YouTube. Right, who are watching, maybe not on their phone, maybe they're watching on their television, their smart TV. We got people out with our custom Roku channel. We have people watching on our Roku channel, which is almost as big as our YouTube and our Facebook audience combined.
Right.
On the Roku. Wow.
And a lot of those are our seasoned senior people who went and told their son or daughter to go down
and get me a Roku stick and attach it to my TV.
The pastor on.
Because pastor's on. And that's how they're actually able to see it on television.
Right. Well, see, and my mom is 91, right? And so for her though, it's kind of a, like where if people in our generation and younger may be tired of looking at television on the computer or on television. We're tired of that.
Mm-hmm.
But in her generation, in the elderly generation, this is a new thing for them.
Right.
So they're not tired of it yet.
Right.
Right.
Oh, I'm learning I'm Rokuing, yeah. Or I'm Facebooking and that type of thing. They're excited about that because they're getting the hang of things. And and that's just because the technology age has had to slow down and they have an opportunity to catch up. So it's great for them. So I'm bringing that up just to, to agree with what you're saying. I understand that. That's interesting. But okay, so the next thing I want to ask is, since you're planning a new ministry, right? What steps are you taking to create that sense of community in this new? Because I'm telling you, people aren't starting new churches right now, but in this pandemic. But you guys have decided to do that, and the Lord has just guided you through that process. So, how has the Spirit moved on you as church planters to have this strategy of creating a community and shared goals and mission?
So, I mean, I'm not a church planter. My mother is. Yeah,
but you're doing it though.
I know. And so the idea, and because my mother's a church planter, I don't mean this to be disrespectful, but I don't have a better term for it. I personally have some PTSD from it. Okay. All right. And so the idea that God has called us to plant a church is really strange because it's nothing that we ever planned on doing. And certainly not during the pandemic. And,
right. So how you create this sense of community then in this new thing?
So it's a work in progress. For me, I was an assistant pastor in my early 20s, like 22. Started pastoring at 25, 26. So this is all as an adult. This is my entire adult life. This is what I've done. There's some time in banking and that kind of stuff, but primarily this is what I've done. And she's been with me for a large part of it. She's been licensed now and in ministry for about 6 years. But for me, it's now about 20 years. And I have these parameters and these walls and these constructs in my mind about how things are supposed to be done.
Right.
And okay, I need to set it up this way, and we need to establish it this way, and this is the plan, and this is how we're going to do A and B and C and D. I'm good at that.
Right.
I'm not good at a lot of stuff, but I'm good at that.
Right.
And what this is forcing me to do, and Sherry just said it to me earlier today, and thank God for her on this journey of planning this ministry with me, because she has had to sort of say, okay, sweetie, you're thinking about this a little bit off.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I go the way I would normally go, then it becomes about me.
Mm-hmm.
And it becomes about what I am able to organize and do. And what I've had to do many times, and she's keep pushing me in this regard, is take my hands off and allow God to do it. One way to answer your question is, we had a disappointment as it relates to the church launch today.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty significant disappointment. And it sort of disrupted a lot of my plans in terms of my timeline. And I was all upset, got her up from work, and I was just all bent out of shape. And she was, what happened and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And I was telling her what it went down while she was at the school. And later on, I was talking about it, and she said, sweetie, you're planning too much. You know what you said?
I did. I told him he's planning too much. Part of having a church plan or birthing a church is moving out the way and letting God guide you in every step of the process. So if we're opening the doors of a new church and God told us to open the doors of the new church, then we need to open the doors, let the people come, and let God use us to guide the people and use their gifts and talents to build the church.
Amen. See, that's
everything set up, then there's nothing for them to do and get involved in.
Right. That's what I was getting ready to say. We've heard that saying all through our Christian walk, that whatever God ordains, he also maintains.
Right.
He's going to come with the provision for sure. Now, just to shift as we get ready to close out, just to shift just a little bit, because y'all know, as I talked about in the monologue, there has been this country's moral compass has been called to the carpet big time. Sure. And I am one who is critical of the church, universal church, in terms of its position on, in terms of advocacy. How, there are different ways to advocate, but I'm interested in knowing, as we close out, what your perspective is as far as the greatest threat to this, to racial justice and racial unity. We know what has transpired,
right?
But I'm knowing what your perspective is, as preachers of the gospel, and those who are spiritual and church as church leaders. What is your perspective on what is the greatest threat to racial justice and unity, and what advice can you give people to help maintain faith in these troubling times?
I will answer the last question you asked first.
Okay.
Maintain faith. Number one, we have to recognize that we have seen progress.
Mm-hmm.
Now, part of what I do in the Elam Church of Augusta, my historically has been, I do advocate. I am involved in political dynamics in Augusta and all of that. And I have to acknowledge that we have seen progress, especially since we now have a Black senator from the state of Georgia. Mm-hmm. We now have a Jewish senator.
Yep.
From the state of Georgia.
Right.
Lester Maddox was governor of Georgia not too long ago. I used to see Lester Maddox in the Piccadilly on South Cobb Drive in Atlanta on a regular basis before I knew who he was.
Right.
Well, it hadn't been that long ago. So we have seen some progress.
Right.
Is there much further to go? Absolutely. Sure. But we've seen progress. And the biggest threat to progress, Dr. White.
And we talked about this earlier.
Yeah, it's progress.
Progress.
Okay.
So here's what
unpack that for us.
Here's what I mean by that. Because we have seen the progress, I see it in my children, my 5 boys. I see it. I'm sure my parents, my mother and father, have seen it in our generation.
Right.
My mom and dad. Mom went to the University of Georgia, one of the early Blacks to enter University of Georgia. My dad integrating Georgia State University.
Okay.
They've seen this progress. We've seen changes in our own children and their friends. So we've seen progress, but because things are changing and the stats play this out, the demographic numbers play this out about what America's going to look like in the next 20 years, a majority minority country and all those kind of things, and racial attitudes by generation continues to become more evolved and things like that. Change is unsettling to people.
Right.
Change is frightening to people. And I think a lot of what we're seeing now, this heightened, this amped up this vitriol, this volume that's been turned up, this temperature, this thermostat that's been turned up, socially, is a response to the progress we've seen.
Right.
I often call it the last stand.
Right.
That people are sort of making their last stand before the America as they knew it is no more.
Is no more.
My air quotes, as they knew it, it is no more. So to maintain faith, we have to acknowledge that the work we've done, the work our ancestors, our foremothers and forefathers have done, is bearing fruit.
Mm-hmm. Even the work we're doing now, it's
bearing
bearing fruit. And
but we have to keep on working.
Exactly.
We have to keep, to your point about the church, we have to keep on working. And so how do we do that? Well, there are a number of ways to do that. Different pastors do it different ways. I'm never one of these guys that, points fingers at who and criticize what somebody else is doing, because everybody's on the team and everybody has a different role to play. For us now in this season, I find my role shifting a bit because we're planting the church.
Is not where we would.
It's not where my current church is.
Right.
Okay. It's in a different space and a different place.
Different community.
Different community. And if we're going to see the progress we need to see, then God is sort of pushing me to sort of approach it in some different ways. I'll give you an example. 3 years ago, you could not have told me, if someone says, Miller, you need to run for office, I'm like, absolutely not.
Right.
I don't run for office. I'm a pastor. That's what I do. But now I'm giving serious consideration.
Okay.
For actually some sort of, I ain't saying I'm gonna be, governor or senator or anything like that, or state rep, maybe local office. But because again, if we're going,
are you announcing your candidacy?
I am not. I am not on the Perspective Show. Announcing my candidacy. No. No. But what I am saying is, if we're going to see the progress, yes, we have to be critical, and yes, we have to call out and be prophetic and speak truth to power, but we also have to have seats at the table.
Right.
Right. Well, the saying is, if they don't give you a seat at the table, you're gonna bring yourself a folding chair.
Bring a folding chair.
That's what we're gonna do. That's what we're gonna do. And I'm hopeful that this beloved community that Dr. King spoke about, I'm hopeful that progress will take us there. And it could be that the things that we're seeing, that we've witnessed in 2020, is part of the growth process.
I think so.
Right.
I think
so.
People are afraid, and they're, and all this madness, and they can't. But this could actually be have an iron sharpening iron effect on the growth process. But at the same time, just like y'all say, the progress could be the threat as well.
Exactly. And that's why wouldn't God have someone plant a church? Why wouldn't he have a young family with young children plant a church in the middle of a pandemic? It's not natural, it's supernatural. And that's why we knew it was of God.
No. You see that? Somebody at the same picture from DC?
I can't tell. People are not letting Facebook tell the name. It might be somebody from right there in your I don't know. Well, on that note,
listen,
go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
At the end of the day, we are people of faith.
Right.
Are we going to be social scientists? Or are we going to be people of faith? We certainly should consider what's happening in the broader community, broader culture. Absolutely. We're trained to exegete the culture. Right. So we have to do that. But at the end of the day, if God tells us to do something, we are obligated to do. And we prayed about this
hard.
And we're not just planting, we're still pastoring, Elam Baptist Church. We're not just planting the Elam Church of Columbia County, but we're also trying to formalize and this online Elam Everywhere congregation. Right. I got a millennial sister who probably ain't going back to nobody's church anytime soon, but she watches us online every week. So, how do you disciple, back to our earlier conversation, how do you disciple them? Are they not a part of the congregation and the body of Christ just because they're virtual? No. So we need to, again, it's not either or, it's both and.
Right. That's right.
And when COVID is done, I think again is it's rewritten the rule books.
Mhm.
So one of the cool things about planning a church in a pandemic on the positive is there's no pressure.
There's no
Right.
There's no walls.
And not only that, but you guys are setting a precedent. And God is looking down on your ministry, and he is proud of you both, I'm sure.
Right. If I see 15 folk on that one Sunday, we good.
We're good.
If I see 10, we good.
Right.
Let's roll on. Let the church roll on. We'll be all right.
And on that note, we're gonna close out because we really want to. We know people will tune in. We want them to get the gist of our program and not necessarily get bored.
Yeah, we got to feed, so we'll be all right.
So we're gonna come back and visit with you guys probably in the next few months once you have gone into your new sanctuary and got settled in to see so that you can kind of give us the bird's eye view of what what the seed that you're planting has produced. And on that note, I want to thank you guys for Dr. Miller, Mrs. Miller, Reverend Miller, for being a part of this broadcast. We want to make sure that everybody knows that on next week, we will be back on next Thursday at 6:30. The show will be the Women's Laboratory, and we're going to be talking about love, the history of love, how love affects us all, and from a woman's perspective, what is the future of relationships, especially in the wake of pandemic. We've seen the statistics, and we're going to be talking about that. And so we're pretty excited about next week's show. The other thing that we have coming up also is we've got the Social Justice Camp for Kids that is piloting this month. And we hope to be able to bring that to audiences across the country. So I just wanted to, drop that bug in the ear of our listeners. And so on that note, I want to thank you for tuning in. I want to just leave you with the words of the famous those famous words from Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, that whatever affects one directly affects us all indirectly. Good night, everyone. Welcome to Perspectives On, where we're giving the world a voice. We are a faith-based social justice forum where individuals give their perspectives on various topics. It's an opportunity to express their viewpoint, their stance, and their angle on justice issues affecting the community and globally. Each episode features guests presenting their perspective on things like climate change, the church, urban farming, and food insecurity, all through a unique faith lens. Come check us out. Give us